and then it was running, there was like 4 slots. So I got impatient. I'm like, come on, honey, hurry up, give me the keys, let me go get the car. Well, when they fell in, we couldn't go get the car. We couldn't move the boat. So we had to just sit there. We had to call AAA to come out on the board. Redo a call, a key to the car, so that we could then move the car to get.
Really gotta.
After camping, and I think we spent about 6 hours sitting there. Kids were really lost.
Yeah, those things happen. Usually at the worst possible times, like it did be.
I used to be famous. My wife and I got pretty good. I'd back in, and she'd get in the boat. She'd, it was probably 3 or 4 times a day. You lose all boating cool points when you have to tell them, get out of my way, I gotta get that boat. Drain the water for like 10 minutes.
My wife, when we got our first boat, she and her friend would go home. Because we had this Jordan Lake. Oh, yeah. It was a small boat, so I mean, it was only, this is Sunbird, 19.5 foot, and it was low to the water, so this one's higher to the water. She don't like it. But anyway, I'd come, one night or on the weekend when I get together, I'd go, and she said, I'd go to throw the anchor out. Where's the anchor? Because I didn't tie it down. One time she said, we were rushing to get back to the car. So I just took off. Next thing you know, it's out.
Yeah. Oh, I did that one time, and it bounced, and it hit a swim platform on the side, and I was like, oh my God, I could have killed something.
My head was on the edge.
Best one ever, we were out in front of Washington, and, always when we had big issues, someone would help us out, someone would bring us, tell us back. All boaters are nice when it comes to someone else's boat. So we're out there, we got 5 kids, we're pulling into, we got somebody was out there, shoots up a fire, and it starts rolling. We got all kids on the inner tube, so we're pulling the inner tube behind us going over there.
This is the best bird.
See your mom?
There's like 20 coming down the river to us. He was starting to sail over us. And we come with kids on the unit. We had to do a restart of the sailboat. All the sailboats had to turn around to start. We didn't say, oh, really? Someone I could run a book. It was total idiot.
Sorry about that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Board of Education of Durham Public Schools to order. It's May 13th, 2014. And this is a special meeting for the board to have one final discussion of the budget proposal and to approve a budget request to go forward to the county. Let's start this meeting with a moment of silence, please. Thanks very much. Item 3 is agenda review and approval. Is there a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved. Second.
Those in favor of this agenda say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Item 4 is adoption of the proposed budget for 2014-15. Mr. Osteen?
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Board members, today we have brought to you 2 primary points for the budget, one for this year and one for next. We have had several reviews publicly at board meetings and work sessions, so hopefully today is the culmination of that work. We do have an intent to have a budget to our county by the middle of the month, 15th. So with that, I'm going to invite Mr. Beaulieu up front to share some of the options that we have in front of you in the backup in the charts. Aaron?
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Again, trying to be responsive to all your requests and your request for information we have before you today, option 1 and option 2. What I'd like to do is just briefly go through those two options, explain the differences between those two options, and then I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. Paul Lasser is here with me. We both welcome the opportunity to try to respond. Option 1 is what you saw at your last meeting. Option 1 is the same original proposed budget for 2014-15 at $407,932,921. What you see now in a county appropriation is the county appropriation broken out in two different levels. Local county appropriation for DPS and local county appropriation charter schools pass-through. So again, the same overall funding level that you saw last time of county appropriation, but a distinction showing the separate amount that will be the pass-through amount for the charter schools with their projected increase. Again, full funding of the quarter-cent sales tax with the over $600,000 increase. The same funding of capital outlay at $1,370,000, giving a total county funding request of $120,233,146. And then again, the fund balance breakout between committed and unassigned. Option 2, again, is the same overall budget. This increases the local county appropriation to DPS by $716,000, which would be the additional amount of the current year increase projected for charter school enrollments. Charter schools, again, $15,660,210 would be the same, but again, we would have to fund them at our per pupil, whether we get an increase allocation in our portion or not. So again, it would take the county appropriation to $111,889,596. Full funding of the quarter-cent sales tax, capital outlay at the $1,370,000. Total county funding request at $120,949,141. And if we were to receive the additional $716,000, what we're proposing in this is just like we did with the full quarter-cent sales tax increase to offset our dependency on fund balance, thus lessening the committed amount and putting more in our unassigned. Both of these options are footnoted at the bottom, that what they basically cover as we've described, but they also list priorities, and I'll read you the priority, which this is the same on both options. Fund additional dollars equivalent to an interpreter's salary out of existing budget and provide family support services across the district. So I think even though we've had many requests and many demands on the budget, those are the two priorities that we would recommend and would be provided out of this overall budget at this time. So again, that's option 1 and option 2 for the proposed 2014-15 budget. We'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks, Mr. Beaulieu. Board members, I'll turn it over to anyone who has questions or comments about these two options, about the footnotes at the bottom.
I like option 2. And I like the spelling out of the priorities. However, I did want to ask, when we say provide family support services across the district, are we talking about to? Is it only bilingual, or is it to other families? What are we saying here?
Well, I was assuming that we were calling family support services additional services that we recognize our students with limited English skills need, as well as additional social services. Remember, there was a request by several board members have said for a while now, we need more social workers, that kind of social support.
It's not limited to.
Right, I thought we could have one of them explain. Who would like to
Um,
talk to us about that?
Again, Family Support Services meet all of our families across the district, understanding that bilingual is a major portion of our overall makeup of our parent population as well as our student population. What this was not doing was limiting it to just the 2 schools that were identified. It was limiting to trying to provide additional family support services for our all population, very specifically bilingual across the entire district as a main priority for the school
I
system.
just wanted to make sure that the press realized, got that in, that it's, all district and targeting bilingual families, but not limited to.
Also, while we're on that priority, I think it's important to note, Aaron, that you all are saying that within our existing budget, we already had planned to expend dollars that would be equivalent to an interpreter's salary, because our ESL department under Sashi Ryasam and her wonderful staff had already determined that we had some additional needs, and even presented a plan to you all when you were bringing the budget to us that included some of these services, and so it's built into the budget as is, and at a dollar amount that would be equivalent to an interpreter. We're just not specifying that those dollars are going to be spent on one single interpreter to serve the whole district. There may be other ways to break down those services that will better meet our needs and more efficiently meet our needs. But we recognize that those needs are a priority, that the needs of our families with limited English skills are absolutely a priority, and it's already built into our existing budget. Does everybody feel comfortable with that? Exactly. Well, what do other people think about option 1 versus option 2? Because that will be what we'll have to make a decision about. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I believe that going forward we won't be able to continue to use this funding model where we take money from fund balance and we have flat per pupil funding. Even though we have an increase in student enrollment, even though we have increase in benefit costs, and even though we have increase in inflationary costs, et cetera, going forward. And so I think it's going to be really important that we work together with the county to come up with some sort of funding formula that's in place from year to year, that takes into account increased growth in our school system as well as increased revenues from the county based on property tax increases. And so I think that's a given. But I also believe that this year maybe we should hold with our initial plan of option 1 and be very sure that we have a strong emphasis on believing that we are due the full amount of our full proportion of the quarter-cent sales tax, and that's what we should stand firmly behind this time, and raise this issue of asking the county to provide increased funding for the new charter school students going forward, and get the charter schools to help us, ask for that. That we should come together and advocate for the per pupil funding, even if it is maintained at the current level, to at least receive that per pupil funding for new students, both for new charter school students and for our new students. So I think it's important that we have that conversation and explain it really well. I would go with option 1 this year, and just be very clear that we must receive this quarter-cent sales tax, our full amount of that.
I think that all sounded exceptionally reasonable, but I think if we do that, we're going into a second or third year where we've stayed flat in this and absorbed charter school growth in this community. And I think the way we start and have that conversation is to go ahead and ask for it rather than to have our students absorb it yet again. These are really close options, but option 2 just feels more fair to our students. to me. I don't.
Yeah, I too can support. I can see the pros and cons, and thank you for outlining them, both, Heidi, Natalie, and Minnie. I could support either one. However, for the sole purpose of continuing this conversation, of ratcheting it up to the level of the county commissioners, where we need them to start having this conversation in earnest about how our tax dollars are being used locally to support this education reform. I would go for option 2 so that we can have a healthy conversation when we do sit down with them and propose our budget.
I have no opinion.
That couldn't possibly be the case. Well, new things happen every day, I guess, Pastor. Omega, do you have a preference?
I prefer option 2 because I think it's more reasonable to go on and ask upfront rather than come back.
Well, I am clearly in the minority. I like to work by consensus. I think they're both good options. Are we at all concerned that this will look like we are, backpedaling on our commitment to absorb any increase?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that it is understood that when you increase your enrollment, especially those children who are going to be passed through going to charter schools, that is a cost that must be incurred and not at the deficit of our students. I think that the voters clearly stated that the quarter-cent sales tax they voted on that to go to public schools, so that's what we're due. We're asking for nothing more than what we are, no additional monies, just what we are due. So
Right.
I think that's what we've absorbed. Everything else, like the interpreters and the fact that we're going to do a raise for our teachers and our other employees, we've absorbed all of that. So yeah, I'm fine. I'm really comfortable with this option 2.
Yeah, and I do think we should make it clear that we are not requesting any additional funding for our students. We're really only asking for the per pupil allotment from last year to follow that, and that allotment from the county to follow the new charter students that we're expecting. Otherwise, we would be required to take that money from our own students per pupil allocation. So I totally agree. That seems like the fairest approach. And I also agree that this is an amazing budget. That our staff has done outstanding financial work for us. I mean, I'd like to thank Paul Lasure again, Tanya Lee, Sheila Tharrington, and Evelyn Galtagos, who have done amazing work alongside Aaron Beaulieu and our whole entire staff, actually. This was, quite an undertaking to absorb $14.9 million of expenses, and at the same time actually increase our staff by the equivalent of 9.6 full-time equivalents. I don't know if everyone realizes that, but that's just an amazing undertaking. And so, our budget proposal, the book, this whole entire budget maintains the current local appropriation from the county. It assumes we will receive the district's full committed share of the 1/4 cent sales tax approved by the voters. It maintains current staffing formulas across the district to continue our investment in the classroom. It maintains the current non-salary allotments to individual schools. And it plans for a 2% raise for all of our staff based on if that's what the governor does, correct? I want to make sure I'm saying things that are correct. Okay. In addition to having to absorb increased costs for benefits, for increased student enrollment, and operational increases in costs. And our staff has done this by maximizing every dollar and every potential savings in a way that protects the services that our children receive. And we've done this partly through the use of fund balance. I mean, we've had a 50% reduction, basically, in our fund balance, and partly through a lot of operational efficiencies. And our budget book, I think, is excellent and clear and transparent and explains how our district will be absorbing these increased expenses at the summary level, the fund level, the purpose level, and the program level. And if anyone wants more detail at the object level, that can be provided as well upon request. So I guess we're ready to vote on this. Yes. Omega, that'll be the next item. Okay. Yes, I know they're so closely connected. I know it's tempting to jump right in, but well, board members, are we ready for a motion on this then? Option 2.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve option 2 for the proposed budget request from the county for fiscal year 2014-15. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is unanimous vote for this budget request. And that now brings us to the next item.
One-time funding plan we've presented already. Mr. Boyer, will you come up and be prepared for any questions? The summary is in your handouts.
Yes, and one point of clarification that we have garnered some concern on, but again, just like to go publicly to say that this staff's commitment, and I didn't get to thank Pastor for adding some toppings to the sweet potato, but the $250 request is to all other groups outside of the licensure group, all classified groups, all employees across the district, except for ELT and superintendent, would receive the $250 in addition to all the group that we clearly defined as instructional personnel that would get the $500. So, but nothing has changed the total dollar amounts. This is looking at your current priorities with some lap salary and current budget dollars that you're putting to use now to not only finish out this year but also help going into next year.
All right, Omega, you had something.
This answers my question. I was gonna ask, so this actually has nothing to do with this year's budget that we
That's
had
right.
just approved. Okay, but then there are two questions.
All right.
This read to achieve, do we not anticipate having a need for this, for funds next year? And the second one is about facility maintenance for schools. Is there something extra that's going to be done? I know maintenance is an ongoing thing, so is there something special that would be done this year that we do not anticipate having?
I can try to answer the second one. I'll defer the first one to Stacy first for Read to Achieve.
With Read to Achieve, that we will be expecting a state allocation, but the funding is pretty much based upon whether or not the students are successful. And so there may be a need next year, but we'll have to look at our spending patterns to kind of take that into account. But it's no firm amount. The state gives us some, but it's a moving target in terms of how much money we will actually need for next year.
And the clarification, I can refer that to Mr. Osteen, your facility service budget has received drastic cuts the last couple years. This puts the money in to just maintain and continue your current operations on your day-to-day operations. This same 725 is built into the proposed budget that you just approved to get them back to an adequate funding level to maintain your facilities. And again, it's never totally adequate, but it gets you back to a level that you were almost at 3 years ago for your facility operations. So a very good point of clarification question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we were all in favor of this last week at the work session. Are we ready for a vote on this item?
I move that we accept the one-time money proposal for 2014-2015.
I second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the one-time money proposal that our staff has laid out for us here.
Just to
Excuse me, I'm sorry. That is the one-time funding request for 2013, 2014.
And that's what I'm saying.
And you can second that again.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we accept the administration's one-time money proposal for the 2013-14 school year. It's laid out for us here, and we discussed it last week. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is unanimous as well. All right, board members, anything else anyone would like to say related to these topics? Mr. Osteen, why don't we talk a little bit about that? I think it may be different this year.
We'll submit it to the county before Thursday, and then we're in discussions with Mr. Davis, the county manager, to find out what kind of schedule they have for their other various agencies and when they'll invite us for a slot to present as well. Be in the near future.
But this goes to them by Thursday, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. All right, very good. Well, this was an excellent meeting. Thanks again to our terrific staff. Lots of hard work has gone into this. Thanks to board members for...
Because we have to start doing so many different times, so many different ways. Thank you.
If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned.